I realized someone had been inside my house while I slept, when I found a clean coffee mug in the cabinet that I swear I'd left soaking in the sink the night before. That was the moment something inside me quietly snapped. Not panic yet, just that slow, crawling certainty that something about my life wasn't as solid as I'd believed. My name is Lauren Hale, and at the time all of this started, I was 32 years old, married, childless, and living what most people would call a perfectly normal suburban life. My husband, Ethan, and I had been married just over 3 years. We lived in a tidy, split-level house in Cedar Grove, Colorado, the kind of place where every driveway has an SUV, the lawns are aggressively trimmed, and neighbors wave but never linger. We both worked regular jobs. He was in logistics for a regional distributor. I managed accounts for a mid-sized marketing firm. Our weekdays blurred together in predictable ways: coffee, traffic, emails, dinner, TV, bed, boring, safe, familiar. Ethan's parents, Mark and Susan Bennett, lived about 25 minutes away in Lakewood, close enough to drop by, far enough that it felt reasonable. They weren't loud people. They weren't dramatic or openly intrusive. If anything, that was what made them harder to push back against. They were always there in this soft, constant way. Weekly dinners, leftovers dropped off without warning, text messages asking if we'd eaten, if we were tired, if we needed anything. Susan liked to say she was just checking in. Mark mostly nodded along. When we bought our house, Ethan gave them a spare key. I remember standing in the kitchen when he told me, the smell of fresh paint still in the air, cardboard boxes stacked everywhere. "It's just for emergencies," he said casually. "If we're out of town or if something breaks." I didn't love it, but I also didn't want to be the wife who made a big deal out of something that seemed on the surface harmless. So I agreed, with one clear condition. "They tell us before they come over," I said, "every time." Ethan nodded. He kissed my cheek. He said, "Of course." I believed him. For the first year or so, nothing felt off. If they came by, they texted. If they needed something, they asked. Life settled into that steady, predictable rhythm that lulls you into trusting your environment completely. Then the little things started. It was never anything dramatic. Nothing that screamed intruder or danger, just details. The mug was the first one I noticed. I distinctly remembered leaving it in the sink. I'd been too tired to deal with it. In the morning, it was clean, dry, back in the cabinet where we kept the everyday cups. I assumed Ethan had done it. When I asked him, he frowned and said he didn't remember touching it. "Maybe you did it and forgot," he said. "You were half asleep." That explanation felt reasonable enough. Then it happened again and again. The thermostat would be set a few degrees warmer than we usually kept it at night. A throw blanket on the couch would be folded differently, neater but not in my way. Once I found groceries in the fridge that neither of us remembered buying. Nothing expensive, just bread, milk, cut fruit. Each time there was a logical explanation. We forgot, we misremembered. I even joked about it once. "Maybe we have house ghosts," I said, laughing. Ethan laughed too, but it was distracted. Like the idea made him uncomfortable, even as a joke. Looking back, that should have been my first real warning. But when you trust your home, your marriage, and your routines, your brain works overtime to protect that sense of normalcy. You don't want to believe something is wrong. The night everything changed started like any other Tuesday. We went to bed around 11. The house was quiet. The doors were locked. I remember checking, because I always do. It's a habit I picked up years ago and never shook. Sometime after 2 in the morning, I woke up. Not fully. Just that half-conscious state where your body knows something shifted before your mind catches up. At first I thought I'd dreamed it. Then I heard it again. The front door. Not opening loudly, not slamming, just the careful, controlled sound of it closing, like someone was being very deliberate about not making noise. My heart started pounding instantly. I lay there, completely still, staring into the dark, every nerve ending awake. The house settled around me. I strained to listen. Footsteps, soft, measured, downstairs. I nudged Ethan and whispered his name. My voice shook despite my effort to control it. "I think someone's in the house." He groaned, rolled onto his side, and listened for maybe 2 seconds. "You're dreaming," he murmured. "It's nothing." Then I heard a cabinet open, slowly, deliberately. I sat up, adrenaline flooding my system. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone, my thumb hovering over the emergency call screen. I didn't want to overreact, but I didn't want to be wrong either. The refrigerator door opened. That sound, mundane and familiar, hit me harder than anything else. Whoever was downstairs wasn't rushing. They weren't stealing. They weren't panicking. They were comfortable. They were home. I waited, breath shallow, heart hammering so loudly I was sure it could be heard from the stairs. Then, just as quietly as it had begun, the movement stopped. A few minutes passed. Then the front door closed again, carefully. We didn't go downstairs until morning. When we finally did, Nothing looked disturbed. No broken locks, no open drawers, no signs of forced entry. But the dishwasher was running, and it absolutely hadn't been when we went to bed. The dishwasher was still humming when Ethan wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes like the night before had been completely unremarkable. I stood there staring at it, arms folded tight against my chest, my mind replaying every sound from the dark over and over again. "Did you run that?" I asked. Ethan glanced at the machine, then at me. "No, why would I run it at like 2 in the morning?" I didn't answer right away. I opened it instead. Every dish from the previous day was inside. Clean, still warm, the mug was there too, the one I remembered leaving in the sink. Ethan watched my face change, and something in his expression shifted, confusion sliding slowly toward unease. "That's weird," he said, not dismissive this time, just quiet. We stood there longer than necessary, the normal morning sounds of the house suddenly feeling wrong, too loud, too exposed. When Ethan finally spoke, his tone was casual in a way that immediately put me on edge. "I'll ask my mom," he said, just to rule it out. The way he said it, like this was a reasonable possibility, made my stomach drop. He stepped into the hallway and dialed Susan. He didn't lower his voice. He didn't look concerned. This was, to him, a strange but solvable puzzle. "Hey," he said when she answered. "Random question, did you guys stop by last night?" There was a pause, not the quick, confused kind, the kind where someone decides how to respond. Then Susan laughed. "Oh yes," she said lightly, "we didn't want to wake you." The room seemed to tilt. Ethan laughed too, automatically, like his body hadn't caught up to his brain yet. "You were here? At night?" "Well, not late, she said. "We were in the area. We brought food, tidied up a bit. The dishwasher was full." I felt cold all over. "How long?" Ethan asked. Another pause, shorter this time. "Oh, a while." When he hung up, he looked at me like he expected me to laugh along with him. Instead, I sat down hard in one of the kitchen chairs because my legs suddenly didn't feel capable of holding me up. "A while?" I repeated. Ethan shrugged. "I mean, they have a key." "Ethan," I said slowly, carefully, "your parents were in our house while we were asleep." He frowned. "They weren't sneaking around. They were here at 2 in the morning. They didn't want to wake us." That sentence, so calm, so reasonable in his mouth, made something inside me break open. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner, for explaining away every little sign, for assuming the rules we'd agreed on actually existed outside of my own head. I tried to explain it without letting my voice shake. "That wasn't help," I said. "That was them entering our home without telling us, without my consent." Ethan's posture changed. His shoulders stiffened. "You're making it sound creepy," he said. "They're my parents." That word landed like a match on gasoline. I told him it didn't matter who they were. That intention didn't erase impact. That I didn't consent to people being in my house while I was unconscious. He said I was overreacting. I said I didn't feel safe. He said I was projecting. That was the first real fight of our marriage. Not loud, not explosive, just sharp, defensive, full of sentences that ended in silence instead of resolution. A few days later, we went to his parents' house to talk about it. I rehearsed what I wanted to say the entire drive. Calm, appreciative, clear. Susan met us at the door with a tight smile. Mark lingered behind her, hands in his pockets, already uncomfortable. We sat at their kitchen table, the same one we'd shared countless meals at. And I explained, as gently as I could, that I needed them to stop coming over unannounced, especially at night. Susan's smile disappeared. "I can't believe you'd think I'd ever do something inappropriate," she said. I changed Ethan's diapers. I said it wasn't about trust. She said families don't need privacy from each other. That's when I knew this wasn't going to end cleanly. They agreed to stop. But nothing ever felt the same after that. The dinners became tense, the texts stopped, the warmth evaporated. At home, Ethan kept saying he understood, but every time it came up, it felt like he saw it as a scorecard, like I'd won, like his parents had lost, and like he was quietly keeping track. The first thing I noticed after that conversation wasn't what Ethan's parents said. It was what they stopped doing. No more casual check-ins. No "did you eat" texts. No surprise containers of food dropped on the porch. At first it felt like relief. The house was finally quiet again. Predictable. Mine. But that relief didn't last. The silence settled in slowly, like humidity you don't notice until you're already uncomfortable. When we did see them, at birthdays, holidays, the occasional obligation dinner, the warmth was gone. Susan was polite. Mark was distant. Everything felt carefully controlled. They didn't argue. They just withdrew. And somehow, that felt worse. Ethan started mentioning it in passing. "Mom hasn't texted in a week," he said one night, scrolling through his phone. They feel like they're not welcome anymore, he said another time. I didn't know how to respond to that, because from my perspective, all I'd asked for was to not have people entering my home while I slept. From his perspective, I'd changed the rules of his entire family dynamic. At home, our conversations became guarded, not fights, careful negotiations. He'd say he understood how I felt, but always followed it with something that quietly reframed the situation. I just think you might be seeing it through your own lens. They've always been like this. They didn't mean any harm. I started second-guessing myself. Not because I believed I was wrong, but because everyone else seemed so certain that I was making something small into something dangerous. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and listen. Every sound, the heater kicking on, the house settling, the wind against the siding, made my chest tighten. I'd lie there, staring at the bedroom door, imagining it opening silently. Ethan slept through it all. One evening, a few weeks after the confrontation, he came home quiet, tired in a way that had nothing to do with work. They feel pushed away, he said eventually. They think you don't trust them. I don't trust them, I said before I could stop myself. The room went still. I mean, I added quickly, not with that. Not with being in our house like that. He nodded, but his expression told me it didn't matter how I phrased it. The damage was already done. He started framing everything like a loss. They don't come around anymore. They don't feel comfortable. They're afraid of crossing boundaries now. It felt like the word boundary had turned into an accusation. Like I'd introduced something ugly into a family that prided itself on closeness. And slowly, subtly, the way Ethan looked at me began to change. As if I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. I started keeping things to myself. The anxiety, the tension in my chest when I heard a noise downstairs. The way I double-checked locks even when I knew they were secure. Because every time I brought it up, it came back to intention. They were helping. They weren't doing anything wrong. You're safe. But safety isn't just about danger. It's about consent, about predictability, about knowing who has access to you when you're most vulnerable. One night, Ethan mentioned something casually while we were cleaning up after dinner. Mom asked if she could drop off food tomorrow, he said. I told her to text first. I froze. Tomorrow? I asked. Yeah, during the day. I hated how much relief I felt hearing that. How low my expectations had sunk. That's fine, I said. But later, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered when my comfort had become something that needed managing, when my sense of safety became a negotiation, and whether this was really over or just paused. The shift didn't happen all at once. It crept in through comments that sounded reasonable if you didn't sit with them too long. Ethan started talking about the situation like it was something that had already been decided, already categorized. They feel like they're walking on eggshells now, he said one evening while we were folding laundry. I didn't respond right away. I was too focused on the way he said they, like the two of us weren't supposed to be on the same side. I never asked them to feel uncomfortable, I said. I asked them not to come into our house without telling us. I know, he said quickly. I'm just saying, it feels like it turned into a power thing. I stopped folding the towel in my hands. A power thing, I repeated. He shrugged. You set a boundary, they pushed back. Now everyone's stuck. The way he framed it made my stomach tighten, like boundaries were weapons, like comfort was control. I tried again to explain what that night had done to me, how waking up to unfamiliar sounds in your own home changes the way you experience safety. He listened. He nodded. Then he said something that I can still hear clearly months later. I just think if they really made you feel unsafe, you wouldn't still be this calm about it. I didn't know how to answer that, because I wasn't calm. I was contained. There's a difference. A few days later, he brought it up again, this time like he'd found a solution. What if they had a key again, he said. But we set rules? My heart dropped. No, I said immediately. Just hear me out, he continued. Emergencies only, and we could install a camera or something so you'd always know. The word camera made my chest tighten. I pictured my own living room through a lens. Notifications, proof, evidence. I don't want to live like that, I said. I don't want surveillance to be the compromise. He looked frustrated. Then what do you want? I didn't have an answer that satisfied him, because what I wanted was simple and apparently unreasonable. I wanted my home to be mine. The conversation started looping after that. Same points, same reassurances, same underlying message. This didn't have to be this big, but it was big. Not because of what his parents did, but because of how easily he minimized how it made me feel. I started to realize something uncomfortable. If it had been anyone else, neighbors, friends, a stranger, this wouldn't have been a debate. The only reason it was complicated was because the people crossing the line were his parents. And because of that, my fear became negotiable. I began pulling away in small ways, going to bed earlier, working later. Letting silence fill the space where conversations used to be, not to punish him, just because I didn't know how to keep explaining myself without feeling like I was asking for permission to be uncomfortable. One night, I woke up again around 2. The house was quiet, but my body reacted like it wasn't. I lay there listening, heart racing, waiting for a sound that never came. Ethan slept beside me, completely at ease. And in that moment, I realized the hardest part wasn't what his parents had done. It was that the person I shared my life with didn't experience my fear as real. The suggestion came up again on a Sunday afternoon, the kind that's so quiet it feels heavy. We were sitting at opposite ends of the couch, a movie playing that neither of us was actually watching. Outside, the neighborhood was still. No lawnmowers, no kids, just the low hum of a life that kept going whether we were okay or not. Ethan muted the TV. "I've been thinking about something," he said. I didn't look at him right away. My body already knew where this was headed. "My parents feel like there's no trust anymore," he continued, "and I don't know how to fix that." There it was, not we, not us, them. I waited. "What if," he said carefully, "we give them a key again, but with clear rules this time?" The words landed softly, but the impact was immediate. "No," I said. "Just listen," he said quickly. "Emergencies only, and we install a camera. You'd always know if anyone came in." My chest tightened in a way that felt almost physical, like pressure from the inside out. "I don't want to live in a house where I need proof that I'm safe," I said. "I don't want to check footage to confirm whether someone respected me." He rubbed his face. "Then what's the alternative? They're cut off forever?" "That's not what this is," I said. "This is about my home." "It's our home," he corrected. I nodded. Exactly. The silence that followed felt final in a way I couldn't explain. He didn't raise his voice. He just looked tired. "I feel like you won," he said quietly, "and now I'm the one dealing with the fallout." That sentence cracked something open. "I didn't win anything," I said. "I lost the feeling that my husband understands me." He looked away. "We didn't resolve it. We never do." That night, I lay awake listening to the house breathe around us. The familiar sounds felt unfamiliar now, loaded with meaning, with memory. Nothing happened. No footsteps. And still, I couldn't relax because the real intrusion wasn't physical anymore. It was emotional. It was the realization that my sense of safety was conditional, and that condition wasn't under my control. They haven't come over unannounced since, at least not that I know of. On the surface, everything looks fixed. Ethan's parents ask before visiting now. They text first. They wait for replies. They stay during the day. If anyone were watching from the outside, they'd probably say the situation resolved exactly the way it should have. But that night never really ended for me. I still wake up sometimes around 2 in the morning, not every night, just often enough that it feels intentional. My body reacts before my thoughts do, like it remembers something my mind keeps trying to move past. I lie there listening. The house makes the same noises it always has. Pipes shifting, the heater kicking on, wood settling, all normal, all explainable. And still, I don't relax right away. Ethan sleeps beside me, breathing slow and steady. He says he understands now. He says he gets why it upset me. But every time I bring it up, even gently, there's an edge to his patience, like I'm reopening something that should have stayed buried. "They stopped," he says. "What more do you want?" I don't know how to explain that it's not about what they're doing now. It's about what they felt entitled to do before. About how easily my discomfort became negotiable. How quickly the conversation shifted from, "That scared you," to, "Why are you making this such a big deal?" Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up that night. If I'd slept through the sounds, if I'd never heard the door, if I'd never known. Would they still be coming over? Would I still feel safe in my own home? Would my marriage feel easier if I'd stayed unaware? That thought scares me more than anything else, because it makes me wonder whether the real damage came from what they did, or from the fact that once I knew, I couldn't unknow it. Ethan hasn't brought up giving them a key again. Not yet. I don't know if that idea is gone, or just waiting for the right moment to come back dressed as practical or reasonable. What I do know is this. I don't feel dramatic for drawing the line I drew, but I also don't feel certain anymore. I don't know if I protected my peace, or fractured something that won't fully heal. I don't know if this is what standing up for yourself is supposed to feel like, or if I mistook control for safety. All I know is that when I wake up at night and listen to the quiet, I'm no longer sure who my home belongs to, and I can't stop wondering, did I draw a healthy boundary, or did I just expose a problem in my marriage that was always there, waiting for me to notice?